All right, Jesse on fire. I'm in a mood to show you guys some stories around the mixed martial arts community. We're going to talk about 3 stories today, okay? We're talking about Tony Ferguson's DUI because he's pleading not guilty. I'm sorry, what? Not guilty. He's pleading not guilty. Not guilty. What is his defense going to be? Didn't he flip his car and crash into a bunch of things and then the police arrested him, breathalyzed him? What's his defense? Don't worry about it. We'll show you in the article because it seems like it's a bulletproof case for Tony. Then we're going to talk about Israel Adesanya, and he is now BFF with John Jones. You didn't know that, did you? You didn't see that coming. I did. But now they're BFFs. So we're going to go through that story a little bit. And I want to talk about Islam Makhachev because he is really mad. He's super upset at Elon Musk. And I was wondering what he was going to say. I saw that headline and I looked. I'm like, what could he be mad at Elon Musk about? And he's mad about his Twitter. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is serious. What could it be? And then he said what it was. And I was like, really? Do I have to pick a side? Because I am definitely on Elon's side on this one. I'm just saying, I'll explain why. So everybody calm down. Anyway, so let's start though. Let's just start right into it with the Tony Ferguson story because he's not guilty. Tony Ferguson did not drink and drive. He didn't. He's not guilty. How did he end up wrapping his car around a pole or flipping it after crashing into and totaling 2 other cars? He was sleepy. Does he have a history of drinking? No. Are you sure? Okay, yes, he does. So he wasn't drunk at 3 a.m. Not this time. He's not guilty. So anyway, Tony Ferguson pleads not guilty to misdemeanor DUI charge in Los Angeles. Let me ask you guys a question real quick. How is this a misdemeanor? Right? What makes it a felony DUI? He destroyed 2 cars and flipped his own car. If there's someone in either of those cars are dead. So I don't understand the laws. I'm not suggesting that you guys bump into a felony. I just don't understand how that would be a misdemeanor. Okay. Tony Ferguson has pleaded not guilty after he was hit with a misdemeanor DUI charge after he allegedly crashed his truck on Hollywood, California in May. Prosecutors handed down the DUI charge, with Ferguson appearing at an arraignment hearing this past week, according to a report from TMZ. The ex-UFC interim lightweight champion was initially arrested on May 7th after he allegedly, he crashed into 2. We all know this. He refused a field sobriety test from responding officers, and he was very uncooperative during the investigation. He didn't suffer any injuries from the crash. He was later released on bail. Misdemeanor DUI charges in California typically end with a fine being assessed of up to $1,000. Wait, really? You get that's all that happens? You get blacked out drunk and you flip your car and total 2 other cars, and what you get is a $1,000 fine? That's insane. I know a guy who got drunk in California. He ran a stop sign. He T-boned a taxi cab, killed the cab driver. You know what? This is actually kind of an interesting story. Let me finish this one, and then I'll tell you guys about that. If found guilty, Ferguson would also be put on informal probation, which means he gets into further legal trouble during that period of time. He gets a lot. What about that? Ferguson has not publicly addressed the alleged crash. That's all we got. All right, so I'm going to tell you guys a little story about DUIing in California and why you shouldn't do it, okay? So I was 25 or 26 years old. I was working at a company. We don't even get into the semantics, but it was a young kind of, bunch of little assholes like me. We were making a fair amount of money. And 2 guys at my company did a competition for who was going to get, do better than the other one in a quarter. This guy, Anthony, that I know, he not only beat the guy, he won a $5,000 bet. He also got first in the company. He made about $200,000 in commission that quarter. Okay. He's like my age. He's 25, 26. He made $200,000 in a 2-month period. Okay. I'm sorry, 3-month period. A lot of money. So he went out to celebrate, right? Went out to celebrate, had some drinks. He's driving an X5, which is a very fast SUV BMW. He speeds crazily through a stop sign, T-bones a taxi cab, kills the cab driver, flees the scene, calls the police, reports his BMW stolen, and subsequently gets caught. Okay. So the reason this is an interesting story is because of how I interpreted the entire thing throughout. This is, at least in my opinion, makes it much more interesting. So I know this guy, whatever. And he's a good dude, right? Not dissimilar from me. You know, got drunk. He made a bad decision, went out, got drunk, and he killed a guy. And I remember when this happened, he got arrested. He was in jail. People were like writing him off. Like they were like, because this was in the news. This is a big story in San Diego. And I felt so bad for him. I remember just being like, dude, this guy, look at what just happened to this guy. He's going to go to prison. No one's going to talk to him. You know, like no one, like everyone, like I didn't understand. I was like, don't you feel for this fucking guy? And I wrote him a letter while he was locked up on the preliminary side. And he had just found out that he was probably going to be there for 3 months until his trial. So he wrote me back and he was like, you know, he was saying that he was innocent, you know, and that he was talking about how long 3 months was to be in that jail. And I remember reading this just like, this is delusion talk, man. Like, you're not getting out of this. And also 3 months, you killed the guy. You're going to jail a lot longer than 3 months, pal. And so he actually ended up getting out on bail. And then when, you know, anyway, it doesn't matter. But bottom line is I felt really bad for this guy, right? Because I knew he was facing a huge, at the time I thought his life was over, right? So the thing goes to trial. He gets convicted. And I remember watching on television the day where the victims got to make their statement, right? Like at this point, like I'm still completely on the side of, I cannot believe this happened to this guy. I felt awful for him. And then the victim statements came up and this 16-year-old kid went up there, right? And he's the guy's son. He's the guy who he killed, his son. And the guy was an immigrant from Iraq. He had fled the Iraq war, some Iraq war zone, come to America, and he was driving a cab. And the 16-year-old came up to the microphone and he talked about what his dad meant to him, the challenges that they faced as a family to come to the United States to flee dying a violent death, and how he was going to have to be the man of the household now because his mom didn't work and he was going to have to be responsible for his mom and his sister now. And he cried. And dude, I've never had something that I felt like so emotionally about do more of a hard 180 ever than that. Like I'd spent months and months and months just like sick to my stomach for my buddy. And I watched that shit, and I'm telling you, it was like, that experience burned itself into my brain. It was just like, whoop. And I was like, he fucking deserves it, dude. You know, he deserves it. This is the outcome of your decision. Now fucking deal with it. Go to jail. Like, you deserve it. You fucking deserve it. And he went to jail. He ended up doing 6 years or something like that. And, 6 years later, that kid is what, 22? Still doesn't have a dad. Still responsible for his mom and his sister. I don't have any ill will towards Anthony or anything. It's just like, this shit's not a fucking game, dude. Don't drive like that. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. So, whatever. He pleads not guilty. He fucking did it. He fucking did it. So he pleads not guilty. It was just going to be a fucking misdemeanor anyway, and you're going to lose the case. So what are you doing? Just fucking own it, dude. You flipped your car. You totaled 2 other cars. Just fucking own it, dude. Anywho, let's look at the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about, which is, let's go through it, right? Let's run through this whole thing because Dana first. All right.
Dana White, the president of the UFC,
surprise, we're going to talk about Slap League,
has once again expressed his disdain for the media, particularly within the realm of mixed martial arts. Known for his unfiltered responses, White does not hesitate to offend individuals when addressing certain topics. In a recent interview, he once again launched a scathing attack on the media, this time in response to criticism regarding his decision to fly Robbie Fox out for a power slap event. Dana expressed his belief in the immense power and influence wielded by the media. He asserted that if it were solely up to them, the UFC would have never achieved its current level of success.
So, I do not like when people hate on people, especially in business. I think that the media was extraordinarily unfair to Dana throughout COVID. I supported every single thing that he did. This, if you can't tell where this is going towards Slap League, and I will tell you why this is different than Slap League. And I'm not sure how I feel about, like, if it was up to the media, how the UFC would have done, you know, whatever. Like, if everybody's rooting against the UFC, it's hard to, I mean, it's hard. I don't know. Like, the media is just like, it's like saying, like, people didn't, you know what I mean? The media is like this huge anyway.
He also claimed that the media would have hindered the UFC's ability to navigate through the challenges. Dana said this.
I mean, the media, here's my challenge with that particular statement, having not heard Dana say it, is like, I mean, if they wanted to hinder it, they probably did all they could, right? What's the media going to do? They're going to talk shit. They're going to make up stories. They're going to say, oh my God, COVID is so dangerous. It's so irresponsible to open up the UFC. Everyone should have to apologize for that now. You want to know who didn't say that? Me. You know? I was always on the other side of all of those things, you know? Anyway, continuing right along.
Let me tell you how powerful the media is. If it was up to the media, the UFC would have never made it, okay? If it was up to the media, we would have never gotten through COVID. If it was up to the media,
True.
Who had any type of influence or power, if they mattered whatsoever, Power Slap would not be doing what it's doing right now. Let them talk.
So here's the thing, right? Here's my, so Power Slap is a different thing, right? I understand how Dana feels like these are one and the same, and I'm going to tell you why, in my opinion, they are not, right? Well, you know what? Actually, I'm not even going to speak for the media. I'm going to speak for myself, okay? Because if there is any implication that I was rooting against the UFC from the second it was incepted to where it is now, that is an indefensible position. I love the UFC. Dana is like the most inspiring entrepreneur ever, and I've said this a million times. I have nothing but respect for Dana. I have always rooted for Dana, and the UFC, I mean, I could have made a YouTube channel about anything. I love this sport more than anything in the entire, I love it. Like, I absolutely love it, and I love the organization. I do nothing but root for it. I want it to succeed, and I've always wanted it to succeed. I have had critical things to say about Slap League because it's not the same thing. It's just not the same thing. Violence for violence sake is not the same thing. You know, the difference, you know, I feel silly having to say this again, but it's like the UFC are finely tuned athletes who have dedicated their life to perfecting their craft and being as dangerous as possible in the octagon in a sport that is fair, dangerous but fair, where you have the opportunity to defend yourself and you have the opportunity to try to break through an opponent's defenses so that you can hurt them more than they hurt you in a sanctioned bout. Slap League are down on their luck people with, you know, that are like fame hungry, money hungry, whatever, who have not trained anything. They have no qualifications other than their willingness to do this. And they hold their hands behind their back and they try to stay conscious while someone slaps them. Like, it's just not the same thing, you know? And like, I don't care if people do Slap League. I don't care. I do not care. I would, if it was my brother, I would advise him against it. I would be like, dude, you really want to take that head trauma for what? For what? I don't, it's like when you win an MMA match, you have proven something. You've proven that you can, you know, perform under pressure, that your training was superior to the other person's training, that your mental game was superior to theirs, that your physical capabilities were better than theirs, right? That's why. And you've proven that you can go through tremendous, you know, adversity. You get trapped in a corner. You're fucking hurt. You're getting battered around. And you came out on the other side, the victor. That means something. Slap League, I was able to stay awake when another guy hit me really hard. And then when I hit him hard, he was unconscious. It's, you know, it's just not the same thing. It's just not the same thing. And people say, like, people pointing that out, they're not trying to sabotage you, you know? Like, I don't know, like the COVID thing, obviously, I was on the same page as Dana, where I'm like, what's wrong with these people, dude? Shut the fuck up, you know? Seriously. Oh my God, Dana's gonna get people killed. Shut up. Jesus. Go get a booster and then, you know, cross your fingers that works out for you. Where, you know, all people being critical of things is not the same. I can be critical of Slap League and still have nothing but respect for Dana and have nothing but, you know, optimism and you know, like good things to throw at the UFC. I just personally don't like Slap League. I don't like it. I won't watch it. I'm not trying to fucking blow it up. I'm not rooting against it necessarily. It's just like, shit's just not for me, you know? And so I would assume there are a lot of journalists where when they talk about it, that's what they're saying. They're not trying to sabotage it. I certainly am not, but it's just not the fucking same, you know? Let's talk about Israel Adesanya and
Israel
listen,
Adesanya and John.
I'll save you guys having to watch this part, you know, because I'll just tell you that now Izzy and John Jones have squashed the beef and they're boys now, and that is because they most likely are not going to fight each other. If you were going to, you know, if you're going to ask me, it's like, well, what changed? I'm like, they're not going to fight each other. You know, were these guys ever really in a beef? No, I don't think so. I think they got into a strategic online beef where, like, yeah, they're beefing and they both know what they're doing, right? They both know the game. Izzy and John both know the game that they're playing, right? Oh, this, oh, this, oh, this, oh, this. They're building hype around their own name. They're not going to fight. They were never going to, I mean, seemed very unlikely to me that they were ever going to fight. But nonetheless, even if they did fight, they're partners in the thing. They're just partners. They were just being partners. And now, as it is very clear that John Jones probably has one fight left and he's never going to fight again, what reason is there for them to have beef? And so, yeah. Oh, weird. They squashed the beef. I could have never seen that coming. Why would John Jones and Israel Adesanya not get along? You know, outside of the potential for them fighting. Like, of course they're friends now. Anywho, now I want to talk about this last thing because I wanted to get this in before the end of the video. We're going to talk about Islam Makhachev's anger at Elon, which is misplaced in my opinion. I'll tell you exactly why, because it's really silly, actually.
UFC champ Islam Makhachev is not happy with the current status of his social media profile on Twitter. He complained today in public towards Twitter boss Elon Musk that his account is still without an verification blue label. He feels that Elon is cheap considering the fact that he's one of the richest person on the planet and still asking him to pay for the blue verification label.
Okay. So here's the deal with that. All right. Elon, you cheap guy, where's my blue tick? So I assume based on what they said in the video that he had said something else about, you know, like Elon's the richest guy in the world, whatever. Okay, so that's not how the world works, okay? Do you think that Elon is going to take the whatever $10 and put it in his pocket? You think that's really what this is? Like, it's Elon? He's like, no, you got to pay me the $10. That's not how the world works. Elon owns Twitter. Twitter is a company, okay? When Elon bought Twitter, he bought Twitter with a very specific reason, okay? He bought it so he could overturn all this speech censorship and allow people to say things like a man is not a woman, you know, things like that. Like, that's what he wanted people to be able to say on Twitter. And also just kind of chop the wokeness down. And if you haven't been able to tell, recently you've seen a pretty big overturning of a lot of the stuff that had been prevalent throughout the world. Okay. You think that the Bud Light thing could have possibly happened without Twitter taking all the guardrails off? They would have just suppressed every single person asking for a boycott. They would have shut all those accounts down. They would have struck them, whatever. And the Target thing, anything about the Target thing, they would have just suppressed it, made it go away. And now all these woke companies are running scared. That's 100% because of Elon Musk. If you don't understand that I promise you that is why. Because as soon as they took the guardrails off, Instagram did also, because they have no choice. Because if they don't, they'll lose the users over to Twitter. And so now, because of Elon, suddenly you're allowed to say things that you weren't allowed to say before. Okay, now the result of that is that the people who are actually driving all the woke agenda stuff, the, you know, BlackRock and Vanguard with their ESG score, okay, now they pulled advertising from Twitter, right? That's how they control everybody. Oh, you're not going to play by the rules? All right. Well, maybe Twitter's not the best outlet for us to advertise on, and they own everything. They literally own everything. And so if you want to make the company work, you need to find other ways to generate revenue. And so one of them is to make people pay for the blue check. Anyone can get it, but you have to pay for it. And I just would go ahead and flip this around and say Islam Makhachev. Okay, it's $120 a year. It's $120 a year. I know that when you give someone something for free, they expect it for free forever, but it never should have been free anyway. The entire point of the blue check is to verify that you're the actual person so people can't, impersonate you, right? That's the whole point of the blue check. So once Twitter became a very necessary part of people's brands, it makes perfect sense for you to have to pay to be verified so that people know it's the real you. So him being the richest person on earth, irrelevant. He's not being cheap. He's trying to run his company in the face of the ESG score, BlackRock, Vanguard, take over the entire world. Trust me. Support him. Support Twitter. He's doing us a lot of good. That is what I've got. I love you guys. Peace.